What's up, everybody? Duke here. Hope you all are being safe, sane, happy, and healthy through these really crazy and depressing times going on in our world today. Welcome back to another episode of Paranormal Road, our podcast where we talk everything paranormal. If you didn't check out last week's episode, link to that episode is in the description box below. Make sure you check it out. Leave some love on there. Joining me, as always, from the great state of Texas, my good buddy and co-host, Dave. Dave, welcome back to the show, man.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
Oh, yeah. So today we have an interesting topic that I kind of want to lay out on this table. It's a sort of a paranormal case that inspired a movie franchise, the Amityville Horror House. Dave, what are your thoughts on this case? I think it was back in, the late 70s?
Well, the book, I believe, was written in 77, or the movie came out in 77. The movie came out in 79, the book came out in 77. That's my mistake. Now, I mean, are you aware of what actually happened in the house?
Well, I mean, I'm 50-50 on this case being real. And I'd like to get into a little bit of the discussion about that. From my understanding, Robert DeFeo Jr. murdered his family in that house, his entire family in that house.
Yeah, 6 people. He killed 6 people. His parents and siblings. He was 23 years old. And when they went to trial, they tried to say that he was driven insane by a satanic presence in the house. And it didn't work. He got sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences, and he just passed away himself in 2021.
Yeah, I remember hearing that he passed away in 2021, which, I mean, we all knew that man was going to end up dying in jail anyways. But
yeah,
the whole thing about this case is that a lot of it doesn't make any sense. Robert DeFeo Jr. went around in the middle of the night with a shotgun and just basically shooting each member of his family. When he was done, the story goes that he took a shower, changed his clothes, ran down to, I believe it was some local bar in the town, begging for help, saying his family's been shot. But now here's the kicker. For me, when the cops were called and showed up and he gave his story or his testimony or whatever you want to call it, the first words out of his mouth were, "How do I collect the insurance money?"
Right.
So that right there would say to me, okay, you did it for the life insurance. I mean, right. Case closed, open and shut, right? But see...
Yeah, what better excuse to use than the house is haunted and I was possessed.
Yeah, but see, what actually got me with this part of this? His family members, when the cops went in there, they found them all face down in their beds, all shot, point blank, from what I heard, from what I understand, with a shotgun. Now, the thing of it is, if you've seen the pictures of this house, the houses are so, in this neighborhood, they're so closely built, almost on top of each other. When the police questioned all of the neighbors that were up at that time, whether they were getting ready for work or simply going through the bathroom or couldn't even sleep, whatever the case may be, they asked all those neighbors, "Did you guys hear anything?" And every single one of them said no. Now, I don't know about you, but I've used shotguns for target practice in the past. And when you're outdoors, shotguns are pretty freaking loud. Okay?
Well, when you're indoors, they're even louder.
Exactly.
They're even louder. But you've got to remember, too, you may be, a certain distance apart. Inside, the rooms may not have been... I mean, I don't know the layout of the house, but let's just say,
No, neither do I.
The rooms were facing the back and the front of the house. People on the side, it's going to get muffled. Not to mention the fact that if you're asleep, if you're whatever in the shower, whatever, you're gonna hear these noises and you're gonna go, "What the hell was that?" And 9 times out of 10, you're just gonna go back to sleep, back to finishing your shower. You're not gonna go investigate it. I mean, I hear gunshots around my house all the time. I live out in the middle of the woods. I have neighbors, but I hear gunshots all the time. I don't even pay attention to it's like, oh yeah, what was that? Oh, that was a gunshot. Okay, But if you're asleep, if you're in the middle of something, especially if there's noise involved, you're in the shower and you're not going to really go investigate what those noises are. You might look out the window, you don't see anything, you go back to what you were doing.
Well, and no, you're probably right, because there have been plenty of times I've heard noises outside of my house while I'm watching TV, and I just kind of look, okay, what was that? Not even look out the window. And I go back to my movie or my television show. I kind of ignore it. So I understand exactly where you're coming from. So now here's my next question to you. How do you explain the fact that Robert DeFeo Jr. was able to walk around his entire home with a shotgun and kill his entire family without nobody waking up and fighting back? Because according to the police report, there were no signs of struggle when the bodies were found. And that's
that's a question I ask myself every time I hear a story like this. By the time you shoot number 1, number 6 should be wide awake. You should be, what the hell was that? That was a shotgun in the next room. That wasn't 2 houses down. That wasn't in my backyard. That's through my wall.
Exactly, because we both said it. Shotguns, when you fire one off, are loud outdoors, never mind indoors. So why wasn't number 6 up looking around the house and maybe wrestling this guy down for the gun?
That's a good question. But you hear about it all the time. This isn't an isolated incident. You hear about it all the time. 4 people murdered in 3 rooms. How does that happen?
Exactly. That's where the big question lies up. And that's one scenario where I'm 50-50 on this being the real deal when it comes to a haunting. And one of the other scenarios is, according to the police report, the bodies, there were no signs of the bodies being moved in any shape or form. It's like they were all laying face down in the bed, and as he shot them, boom, 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 and that was the end of it. So
you would figure you'd meet someone in the hallway. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. But according to the autopsy report, because at first they thought, okay, maybe he drugged them during supper so that they wouldn't get out of bed and fight back as he went around and shot them. But they found no drugs in the system of these bodies. How do you explain that?
I can't. It's
you see
like
where
that is it's a scenario that plays out more than once in multiple murders, and I always ask myself, when number 1 got shot, why didn't number 4 get up, jump out a window, go confront somebody? You know what I mean? Do something instead of just lay there in the bed and get shot.
See, I could understand if the autopsy revealed that there were drugs in their system. Okay, he drugged them before they all went to bed so they couldn't fight back. That would make sense. But they found no drugs in the system, no signs of any kinds of struggle. It's like this guy just went around, boom, 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 and nobody cared. But again, it's those sorts of things that make me question whether or not a demonic spirit was involved. Now, I don't want to turn around and say a demonic spirits are involved every time you get a bad situation like this. Somebody commits a murder or a major crime, because, let's face it, that just gives them an easy out. Now, Robert DeFeo Jr. goes to jail, okay? And I can't remember if it was like a year later that the Lutz family buys the house. Was it a year later, or?
Yeah, it was right around a year later.
Okay, so the Lutz family buys this house. They only last 28 days in this home, if I'm correct. I could be wrong. But they last 28 days, and during this time, they experience all kind of paranormal incidences that just terrified the living you know what out of them. But here's the kicker: they've got no proof. They've got a great story, but they've got no proof. Now, when it comes to the haunting aspect of it, I try to think of all hauntings in a logical sense. Okay, so if somebody's hearing a voice, my first thought is, why would you be hearing that voice? Do you have neighbors living right next door to you that are right outside that particular room and they're just outside having a conversation? Or is your house not well insulated and you're hearing somebody's conversation in another room? You know what I'm trying to say? That sort of thing.
And you buy a house knowing its history, and from some of the things that I've read, they actually bought some of the furniture, including bed frames of the murder victims.
Well, and here's the here.
In my opinion, that's got to play on your mind. That's got to be in the back of your head. Yes, I'm not sleeping on the mattress per se, but it's still, that's got to be just somewhere in the back of your mind. I'm sleeping on a bed where somebody was murdered.
Well, my thing is, they claim that when you have a tragedy like a murder, that it leaves a spiritual impression on the environment. Could that very well have caused the haunting in that house?
I am on the opposite side of this than you are. I've read too much saying that even this story after the fact was exaggerated, and your old pals Ed and Lorraine Warren were involved. There are stories out there that this story was greatly exaggerated, mostly made up, while they sat there one night drinking 4 bottles of wine.
If I remember correctly, not to cut you off, but there was a lawyer that I think his name was Chris and Cindy Lutz. They were the parents in the Lutz family. Okay. And I can't remember if it was the lawyer of Robert DeFeo, and that's where the whole haunting thing came in as far as Robert DeFeo goes. But there was a lawyer that these two were talking to. The lawyer did a voice recording of their conversation, and they eventually started breaking out the booze. Well, that's where, during this conversation, the lawyer put in a little seed planted in their head about books and movie deals and all that. And I cannot remember, Chris Lutz came to somebody and said flat out that that's what they were planning to do, and that he was ashamed of the conversation that they had, because him and his family were going through all this bullshit, but then you have a lot of people that aren't believing it, and on top of it, you got this conversation that comes out. Now, Chris Lutz, like I said, the Lutz family lasted 28 days living in this house. I don't care who you are. If I've got a mortgage on a house and I'm faking something that big, I'm not going to just walk away from the house. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure you wouldn't either if it was you.
No. But now, you can also say, and again, this is just kind of reaching, but it was all part of the plan. Buy the house, move out, write a book.
I mean, I don't know. That's a big risk if you think about it. But
I agree with you, but it's not impossible.
No, it's not impossible, especially back in those days, I'm sure. You're talking prices were different and cost of living was different.
They spent $80,000 on that house. which back then was way below market value for that particular house. And the only reason they got it for so cheap was because 6 people died there. And, it wasn't, it was a big news story in that area. Everybody that was moving in that area knew what happened. That house went crazy cheap.
Oh,
Even for 1976, I believe it was.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm
It
sure.
was well below market value when they purchased that house. You know, again, could it have been purchased as an investment? Hey, listen, we'll get there. We'll move in. We'll claim some crazy stuff happened. We'll move out a month later. Maybe somebody will give us $300,000 for the house just because it's haunted.
Well, you know what's funny? Ed and Lorraine Warren, from my understanding, didn't get involved until after they moved out.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
So now, I don't know how true this is,
No,
but
neither do I.
Ed and
Again,
Lorraine,
we'll get
exactly,
your information from the internet and from interviews done 50 years ago.
exactly. You're looking at interviews done 50 years ago. There's no true hardcore evidence to prove any of this, anyways. Which I understand. We're just spitballing here. We're just discussing this topic. But now, according to... And I can't remember... There was a woman involved. Not his wife, not family, nothing to do with Ed and Lorraine. I don't know if she was some kind of journalist, but she was involved. She had claimed that Ed and Lorraine Warren got involved after the Lutz family moved out. Though Chris Lutz outright refused to go back to that house to let them in. He actually arranged for them to meet somewhere else in public, handed them the keys and said good luck and walked away. Do you know, until the day he died, and even today, nobody knows the real reason why that family decided to up and leave that house? He never came out and publicly said why.
I get that, but again, this was 48 years ago, right? 48.
Is it 48 years, 74?
Let's just say 50 years.
Yeah, it's been 50 years.
What have you heard about the house since?
Well, that's another thing that bothers me. There's Amityville house, even the Conjuring house. You have these families that come out and say all these incredible, weird, paranormal stuff going on. They sell the house, and then you don't hear about it ever again.
Now, here's something that you're going to know a little bit more than I, but what I've heard, what I've read, things that I've watched, a lot of times spirits will become active in a house if someone buys the house and starts to remodel it. True?
That is the big theory out there, yes.
Okay. That house has been completely gutted. The front has been changed. They've changed out the windows. It no longer has those quarter circle windows. That house has been completely gutted, redone. It's a beautiful house, and you've heard nothing.
That's the thing. You've heard nothing. I don't even know if the same people that bought it from the Lutz family still own it or not.
Yeah, I don't either. I know they changed the address. They changed the number on the house.
The town actually did that. Really?
Yeah, because they had too many looky-loos.
I'm not surprised.
People driving by, people coming on the property, people looking in windows. They finally just ended up changing the address. They changed the number of the house.
They had the same problem at the Conjuring house when the Conjuring movies first came out. The people that owned that lived there after the Perron family, constant looky-loos, people trespassing on their property. Oh yeah, that movie destroyed their lives, and you gotta feel bad for them,
Yeah. I mean, but again, you buy a house like that with that history, there's going to be some baggage that comes with it.
Well, and that's true too. That's like buying a one of these abandoned insane asylums, and think that nobody's going to want to go on that property.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, when these families all claim that this stuff happens, you never hear about it ever again, because you would assume that the new owners that move in would have some similar experiences. And I believe the people that bought the Amityville house after the Lutz family actually did an interview with a magazine and said, hey, look, guys, it's not haunted. Nothing happened here. You know what I'm saying? So now what does that say about the Lutz family?
Right. I don't know. This to me just seems like, hey, this guy murdered his family. Let's make some money off this.
Well, and that's the way I'm looking at it too. I mean, even when you look at the DeFeo murders, like I've said, there was no signs of struggles. So you got a guy in an enclosed space shooting off a couple rounds with a shotgun. Why wasn't it when he shot number 1, number 6 woke up and said, "What the actual fuck is going on?"
Right.
You've got bodies that were found face down in bed with no signs of them being moved. So you're telling me that everybody decided, let's just lay here and just end our lives today? I mean, come on. It makes you wonder exactly what happened. The only reason that I'm 50-50 on it is because you have stuff like Robert DeFeo Jr. looking at the cops, and the first thing he says is, "How do I collect the insurance money?"
Right.
I mean,
now, it's funny because right now I am on the paranormal page on Reddit, and there is a Amityville discussion, and it's funny because there's one person in here that said the Lutz were obsessed with the occult. It said they were the only family to experience these strange phenomena, and it's true. There's no one else that owned the house since has had anything happen.
But see, that's something too, and I'm not saying he's not wrong, but I'm not going to say he's right either, because I don't think there's any evidence to show that the Lutz family were obsessed with the occult. I mean, just because I'm into the paranormal and whatnot doesn't mean I'm out here performing rituals. You know what I'm saying?
No, exactly. But it doesn't mean that they weren't.
No, it doesn't mean that they weren't, but...
Again, was their mind playing tricks on them? Or were they just grifters? And I hate to say it, but in the whole paranormal community, across the board, whether it be UFOs, ghosts, cryptozoology, if you can make a buck, someone's going to figure out how to do it.
Well, that's...
In the 70s, it was a whole lot easier to make a buck than it is today off of stuff like this. There's no proof.
Yeah.
Today, you can set up cameras all over the house. You can voice recordings. And then when it comes back, completely empty, you go, you're lying. Back in the 70s, you had to take their word for it. And a murder had just taken place in that house. 6 people died in that house. It was the perfect storm to make money.
It was, and you can't even deny that it wasn't. But you're right, and that's the big problem with the paranormal community in itself, is there are too many people involved who are trying to make a quick buck and quick name for themselves. And right. We could easily have a situation here with the Amityville Horror House where you have this family that hears a story and they want to make a quick buck. You have a guy that just killed his entire family. More than likely he wanted the insurance money. And what does he do? He turns to the paranormal to try to get out of the situation he's gotten himself into. Needless to say, it didn't work, but still, that's besides the point.
Right, but you know what you got to ask yourself, too? Who came up with that idea, him or his lawyer?
Exactly. Who came up with the idea? And I'm pretty sure that the Lutz family somehow got involved with his lawyer, so I'm pretty sure it was his lawyer that came up with the idea. And bottom line,
we're gonna try to get you off on an insanity plea. You won't do time in a prison, you'll do time in a country hospital. Yeah, you might do that for the rest of your life, but you might only be there for the next 30 years.
Exactly.
He was, 23? He was 23 when he did this?
Yeah, I think he was about 23, 24 when he committed the murders.
Yeah, and apparently he had a bit of a drug problem.
Oh, God, yeah. He was big into drugs, alcohol, you name it, he was into it, from what I read.
Yeah, that's what I read as well. That he had drug issues. He was whatever, but you can almost guarantee that was the lawyer's. Hey, let's get you set up. So you end up in a cushy hospital for the next 20 years. You might be there for the rest of your life, but at least you're not going to be in prison.
Exactly. So bottom line is with this case, I'm 50-50 on it, man. I can't say this is real and I can't say this is fake. There's just too much. There's too much evidence to say for both of being real and being fake at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
And say I'm 100% on this one being fake.
I wouldn't be shocked if it was fake. I wouldn't be shocked in the least if we found out.
I'll tell you what, when I was a kid, that movie scared the shit out of me.
Well, they did a hell of a job with the movie. Look at the Conjuring movies. They did a hell of a job with those movies too.
Yep.
You know, you can't deny that.
I am 100% in the this is fake.
Yeah.
This is just a made up story. It's just my opinion. You know, and I'm sure you'll have, you know, a lot of people that'll have 100 different reasons why I'm wrong, but just my opinion, I think this was all staged, all fake, all just to try to get away out of a guy out of prison for killing his family, and then another family buying this house and just trying to make a buck off it. Why would you buy the bed frames?
Exactly.
You know, I'm sorry, you just got a house at a deep discount, and you buying all this furniture. But hey, let's buy the bed frames from right where the murders happened. You know, just too coincidental.
If I was to buy a house that murders took place in, I certainly would not buy the furniture.
No, let's face it, I'm not buying a house with somebody who's murdered anyway. I'm not buying a house with somebody who died, never mind murder.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy a house with furniture in it, period.
No, 100%. No, you don't know what's happened on that furniture.
Exactly.
They said, I guess the last time this house sold, it sold for almost $2 million.
I'm not surprised. I mean, look at what the Conjuring house sold for, $1.5 million. I mean, come on, dude. Yeah. You know, but
I mean, at least this house, the Amityville house, is nice. It's,
oh well, yeah.
You know, you're in New York, nice neighborhood. Yeah, I can see this house going for $2 million. It's 1.9, 1.8, something like that.
Well, it's in a ritzy part of New York.
Yeah.
Isn't that by New York City?
Yeah, it's on one of the islands, I believe. I just have that information up. No, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've never been down there, but from what I hear, this is in a really high-end neighborhood.
Yeah, it's. It's on one of the islands. I just cannot. It's in a nice neighborhood. It's not a slum. Put it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the house is definitely worth $2 million. You know, in that neighborhood, and that's probably on the low end.
Now that's waterfront property too.
It's on a river.
Is it a river or harbor?
Harbor. I know the address was 112 Ocean Avenue. Yeah, so maybe it's a harbor or some sort of.
I'm pretty sure it's a
inlet.
harbor.
But yeah, it's a beautiful house. I'd buy it.
Oh yeah, I mean, if I had $2 million laying around, I'd probably buy it too.
yeah.
You know.
But no, it's, you know, like I said, my big thing is you haven't heard a damn thing since.
Exactly. You haven't heard damn thing since about this. And that's one thing that always bugs me about these kind of cases. And not just Amityville, but you got cases like the Conjuring house. And I'm sure if we dug a little deeper, we would find other cases as well.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we are pretty much out of time for this one. That went a lot quicker than what I thought it was going to.
Yeah, me too.
Guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Dave, you got anything last you'd like to say?
No, I think we're good. Looking forward to the next podcast and hope to see everybody. Hope you enjoy this. We're kind of putting this out there and seeing how we do. We're not professionals in any way, especially me. Ryan's a little bit more polished on this than I am, but thank you all for sticking around.
Guys, don't forget to subscribe for more, and until next time, we'll catch you on the flip side.